What is the Antarctic? That was a question which many have pondered over before. Was there even an Antarctic? Possibly. If so, was it Australia? No, that just wouldn't make any sense now, would it? You see, the cartographers and learned people of the past have for a long time wondered about these questions, which I now, great knower as I am, seek to answer. First of all, the name. Why is it called the Antarctic? Is it because it's the opposite of the North Pole and therefore the anti-Arctic, as intuition would justify it? Well, as one comes to learn with most things in life, it's never really that simple. It's not like the Arctic has an evil cartoon twin as its opposite called the anti-Arctic. No. But though original intuition might be wrong in this case, the clue as to why it's called the Antarctic is still in the name. Ant. Ants! Yes! Those crittery little creatures who work in unison for the good of the colony, who we all love so very much. By count, the most successful species on Earth, only missing from one continent, and missing for a reason. If you look at all the other continents, you'll find reasons for why fauna of one won't survive on another. This normally comes down to one of two factors. Either one, the climate is utterly unsuitable for that species in that sort of place. The penguin's just not gonna survive on the savannah. Or two, there's already a better adapted species that fills its role there. Antelopes are never gonna take the place of the reindeer in the Arctic anytime soon. And the reason why Australia has such weird shit in it like the kangaroo is because literally no other animal on Earth could fill its role. What even is that creature? Now, you may think ahead and think that the reason ants haven't established themselves on Antarctica is because of the first reason. Ground's just too frozen for them to dig any anthills there, really. But there again, intuition would have you fooled, for the actual reason goes far, far deeper than that. The entire continent is an embodiment of ants. Thus, ants bringing their skills to the table there would just not be competitive enough to survive there as they would elsewhere. To see what I mean, you need only look so far, as it's only real land citizens. The penguins. First off, if you look at what a group, or settlement, of penguins is called, you'll immediately see a striking similarity to their eusocial insects brethren further up north. A colony. As in, their bit of land that is theirs by right of settlement, who will not move away and literally die due to shifting sea ice, no matter just moving up a bit, you stupid bastards! Much like how ants will stubbornly rebuild their anthill in the same exact position, even if you kick it open time and time again. It's just in their stubborn nature to not move. But that's not all. Ants and their modus operandi have their home underground, and walk out in great big long lines daily to gather food and building materials for their home and children. Fair enough. But doesn't this remind you of this other animal in the penguin too? Heading out in great big scurrying lines to gather food and material for their home and children. Only here, instead of venturing out and submerging from underground to find what they're looking for, they almost do the opposite of the ant, going from the fresh cold air and submerging themselves underneath in water in search of food. Much like the upside-down nature of what goes on down there in general. But that's not all Antarctica has to offer. Why, the continent itself disperses lines of its own, going out to hunt for seal to feast on. I'm talking about the ice that regularly breaks off and goes its own way from the continent, often in groups and lines, like ants too. For seen from above, both these penguins and ice sheets appear as the ants do to us humans looking down at them from above. And the continent itself not the seals mimicking ants, is even further proof that it's named after ants, as it would be impossible for the seals to do such a thing themselves given their solitary nature and tendency to blend in with the ocean in which they swim. Therefore, as you can see, both its iconic wildlife and the continent itself is the literal manifestation of antdom in continental form. But those are just the natural factors. When you think of Antarctica, I mean, especially I, one thing above all comes to mind. Its famous expeditions. From Francis Crozier and James Clark Ross charting its coast, to Robert Falcon Scott and Roald Amundsen, to Ernest Shackleton and his legendary escape out of there, these stories of the most extreme conditions of mankind are probably what you, I, and most others think of when we think of that great white silence. So, what do these stories tell us about the continent's antly nature then? Well, quite a bit as it turns out. What these expeditions show us, first and foremost, is that man, as defined by his free will, open nature, and boundless creativity, when transported to Antarctica, is by necessity forced into acting much like an ant would. You need look no further than the journal of Robert Falcon Scott himself to see this. On page 263, he describes one of his colleagues as "One has caught glimpses of him in tight places, sound all through and pretty hard also, and that he is eager to help everyone, doing work both outside and inside, tending to paper when inside, much like the ant would with its whitish substance for its larvae." And this is before we even get to how they were going to reach the pole in the first place, travelling in lines on lines after each other, to claim yet another bit of land for their colony. And though both the British and Norwegians in their race to the pole did so in vastly different manners, going from ponies and snowmobiles to simply dog sleds, what remains true for both sides is this appearance of antly transport with the lines on lines to expand their colony for their king. Queens. All in all, this more than anything proves Antarctica's inherently antly nature, making even what we think of as the craftiest and freest creature on Earth but another ant in the line out of pure necessity. The worker mentioned in Scott's journal, by the way, was Apsley Cherry Garrard. Yes, that Apsley Cherry Garrard. Useful as ever in his expeditions in the most unintentional way. All in all, against all intuition, I hope that you are now more enlightened as to Antarctica's true namesake. That it is a land that always needs deeper consideration to get to the bottom of, and that through both its wildlife, continental being, it shows its antly nature and where it truly got its name from. So much so that even the most free-willed and upright men who go there have to act like ants just in order to fit in and adapt to its nature out of pure necessity. And that is why the continent is called Antarctica. For they, though never having gone there, still show their presence stronger than anywhere else on the planet exactly there. The ants.